What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. I had an analogy come to my mind today while I was working out listening to a Drake song, and I couldn't help but keep thinking about it. He says, "King of the hill, you know it's a steep one," which got me thinking about steep hills. And all the analogies then flooded my brain. We usually associate someone living at the top of the hill as the one who has the most wealth and the biggest house. Usually in a neighborhood, the house that has the most land, earned the most space and isolation at the top of the hill is the one who is financially in the best place in that neighborhood. At least visually speaking, based off of evidence of their success. Obviously, I don't know the person, and the person inside could have current or future problems that can change all of that we can't consider, and that's not the point. Usually also, sometimes that climb up that hill means longer drives home and to work, more disconnect from the city, probably a bit more inconvenience and trade-offs from the normal comforts. If your criteria is to live in a walkable city, you're probably not calling forth the top of the hill. Needless to say, the steeper the hill, the taller the mountain, the more challenges, and probably also a greater sign of success. What it also made me think about is how most of us would much rather forego that difficulty. And it really comes down to this. The person willing to climb the steepest hill, the tallest mountain, the one with the most difficulty, the one lacking very obvious footing, the one that requires a higher risk tolerance, the one where the stakes are higher if you slip. People differ in this regard first and foremost. How much discomfort are they willing to go through? And we all vary in the answer to this question. What is a limit for you might be the starting point for someone else. Some might give out in exhaustion before the other person even feels a burn. Some warm up with what is someone else's workload. That variance, I think, is where the difference in outcomes lie. Now, I don't want to be fooled by randomness, and I do believe luck and opportunity play a part. But no one gets to the top of the mountain without all other facilities in their personality being aligned, in their habits, in their beliefs. You require weight-bearing capacity. You require persistence and patience and consistency. But yeah, sure, there's an aspect of chance that I don't want to miss as a consideration because I'm not trying to have a survivorship bias outlook towards success. There's no one way to do it, but the fact still remains. Steep hills, more effort, and only a few people willing to put in that effort. So anything you want in life, even if you consider this through the aspect of our brain and our neurobiology, the thing that makes you pursue something is your dopamine response that first spikes in anticipation, you have the desire, then drops way down into a valley, below baseline, and that poor feeling now, after that desire gave you that anticipation, that poor feeling where you are now below baseline of dopamine, that poor feeling itself following the anticipation high is what makes you go pursue that thing. And this can be corrupted and formed into addictions because the shorter the time span between the desire and attainment, meaning if you wanted something and you got it right away, that forms an addiction because the thing that gave you the quick reward now becomes the least calorically expensive means to give you the good feeling of accomplishment again. So that's the behavior you seek, and drugs, drinking comes to mind. So going back to steep hills, the very nature of the person willing to offset the attainment of the reward by tackling a taller mountain, by setting their sights higher, by just tackling a taller mountain than someone else is willing to tackle, the very nature itself is what leads to success. Because you are reinforcing the process of pursuit itself. You are reinforcing the distance between what you want and getting it. The taller the mountain, the further away your goal. And the more it requires the type of person not corrupted by quick, cheap ways of feeling accomplished. The more it requires a person who pursues for the sake of pursuit. The more the taller mountain requires a person who can continue forward progress despite the hardship, despite the difficulty, and despite feeling of achieving anything in the short term. And attainment is funny that way, because the longer you stay committed to something, the harder it is to come by. Even if you do attain something, continuing to succeed at that same thing has a law of diminishing returns. And attainment, again, is funny that way, because the longer you stay committed to something, the harder attainment is to come by. The more you have to work for the same amount of result. But luckily, what also happens is that attainment becomes less important to you. You find a connection in something else in the process, which balances this requirement for seeing the fruits of your efforts right away. So the longer you stay committed, attainment becomes less important. The longer you can forego that fruit, the longer you can put it off in the future as a reward for doing all the right things today, the steeper the hill you can climb, the more successful you will be, and the better the views. Love you, family. See you at the top of the hill. Stay true, always.